Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Play the Tape. I am your host, Derek J. Fields. I always have to do it. Sometimes I forget, but we know we're human. Sometimes we infallible. But full disclaimer, for me, I am not a licensed social worker, a licensed or clinical counselor, or a certified drug and alcohol counselor. What the podcast, what the platform of Play the Tape is support, community, and advocacy for those with mental health conditions, substance use issues, and we have a journey of recovery, which is inspirational change moving forward. And that's what we do here, is provide hope. So my guest today, we met at a CIT. CIT is Crisis Intervention Team, and we'll talk more about that because my guest today is very heavily involved in that. My guest today, she was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. She is a mental health professional with a degree in philosophy. Her current job titles are Correctional Behavioral Program Specialist 2, working for North Carolina state government and in the private sector as a behavioral mental health qualified professional. My guest today graduated in 2002 in New Rochelle, New York. Started her interest in this field in the late 90s as a volunteer, which grew into a paid entry-level position, counseling position. That's awesome. Over the years, she's worked in the health service in 3 different states, obtained her certification in developmental disability case manager, and master's in crisis intervention training instructor. In 1994, Chariesse finally accepted the calling on her life and became a minister and received her license. We're going to talk about that too. I love that. She is currently licensed ordained minister in the Gospel of New York and in the state of North Carolina and in the state of New York. She wears 7 different hats. She's an MC. She's in media marketing for radio and television, cable host, skincare consultant, and she's a passionate advocate for kidney awareness as she's a successful post-kidney transplant individual. Lastly, but not least, Chariesse is a daughter. She's a niece. She's a sister, a bonus mother. I need to know what that is. And a grandmother. She's a prayer partner. And she's a humble servant, and she has a bird eye view of less than 5 years to her retirement. My guest, my sister today, Miss Chariesse Boyd. It is an honor to have you here, and thank you so much for doing the show.
Thank you for having me, Derek J. Fields. Definitely an honor to be on Play the Tape. So I am very, very humbled. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want you to give us a background about Miss Chariesse, your start, how you got into the field and this career path that you're in. Tell us a little bit of the things that inspired you, that encouraged you to take this journey that you're on right now, and to give the hope and encouragement that you have.
Yeah. Okay. You kind of gave us a surface bio of me. Thank you so much for that. Eloquently read and said, as everyone has heard. Born and raised in Brooklyn, 2-parent household. It was 3 of us. It appears my parents did family planning pretty well. We're all 5 years apart. So 2 boys and me. And came up in what society calls middle class, I guess. And had the honor of, I don't know how our viewers and listeners take this, but when you're growing up and your parents are observing you in a lot of cases, they want to put you here and put you there and kind of see where your gifts are. So I remember taking piano lessons and I was like, I remember getting into the Girl Scouts. I was a brownie. If anyone still knows what that is, I was a brownie. I became a Girl Scout and I liked that. And I remember being put in ballet at like 4 and stuff like that. And I later found out, that's because our parents were just trying to see where our gift lied. And one day I was sitting in the back of a 1970-something Thunderbird, and my mother was driving, and some song came on the radio. And I was singing it. And my mother got to my grandmother's house and said, Chariesse knows how to sing. I didn't include that in my bio because I don't do much of that anymore. So singing became a bit of a passion for mine. I would do it in my room and write the lyrics to the songs, moving forward and faster. Uh, I remember growing up with my neighborhood peers. They would always tell me their secrets. They would always feel comfortable enough to tell me what boy they liked or what girl they liked or, different things. And I was real good at keeping a secret, Derek. I was real good at keeping a secret. And, they confided in me. Unbeknownst to me, that was going to later become one of my gifts. Because as a counselor, as someone that works in a field where you're conducting individual sessions, that's confidential for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
unless it's something that's dire, right? Life and death. And I always listened to people. I always was a listener. And couldn't really figure out what I wanted to do. I knew after high school I wanted to work because I liked the thought of making money. And living in New York, you want stuff. And I remember my dad pushing me for college, and actually got me set up for Long Island University. And I didn't go because I had a job and I just became like a little college truant. And after the first semester, when they found out, they was like, all right, you're on your own. You are on your own. And I did what I wanted to do, which was working. And then I looked around and I found my salary wasn't as high as everyone else's. And somebody came to me and said, because you need that little piece of paper. So lo and behold, as an adult living on my own by this time,
How old were you at that time?
I moved out of my parents' house when I was 21.
Okay.
21. And I probably started exploring my options of going to college in my late 20s, something like that.
Was college for you? Was college for you at that time, or you had to figure it out? This is something that I need.
It was something that I need by then.
Okay.
By then, because once high school, I wanted to work. And I was always good at every subject except for math. That's my worst subject, always has been. And at this point, it probably always will be. But I knew when my check was off and I knew when my money was missing. That's it. And because I was on my own, actually, it was more beneficial for me because I qualified for financial aid and Pell Grants and things of that nature. It was a challenge. So I encourage anyone that may be taking in this information, just push yourself, and I was living on my own, single, working in the daytime and going to college at night. Yeah.
When did college start? Was it at the end of 21, beginning of your 21
Late
year
90s.
age? Okay.
Late
Okay.
90s.
Okay.
And because I was a receptionist at a home care administrative building, and the owner, she said, you really need to go back to school. And she kept encouraging me to go back to school. And she was someone that I looked up to, Miss Baker. And I went on the strength of like her words. Now, interesting enough, my mother and father said the same thing, but it took someone else.
Ain't that funny? Yeah,
right?
ain't that funny how that worked?
You know, yeah,
Yeah.
that's so I did it. And, she gave me a bit of instruction, but mostly back then, because I'm a woman of a certain age, you go to the counselor and they guide you. So needless to say, I did hear you state what I majored in, and that would have been nice, but it was psychology, and and not philosophy. It was psychology.
Oh, sorry. My bad.
No. That's okay. I like that. That sounded good for me for a minute. And I remember, I do remember looking up the definition of psychology. I remember that, and it was the study of the mind. And I was like, oh, yeah. What do people be thinking? And on I went. I had stopped working for some reason. I can't really remember what it was, but it didn't put me like in a bad place. I can't recall exactly why. And it was sort of like a breather to me because I was able to focus more on my schooling. And I started volunteering for a outpatient day program treatment center. And these were for individuals that had dual diagnosis. And that was brand new to me. And they were diagnosed with chemical imbalances and substance addictions, substance abuse addictions. And they coined and named it dual diagnosis. So I started volunteering there, and I liked what I saw. I liked the environment. I liked the thought of this agency helping people. I liked the camaraderie, and they liked me. And they were talking to the directors and the supervisors about pushing me to apply. And they stated after a certain semester I could, and I applied, and I became an entry level counselor, and that's where it began. And as I continued in my studies, um, I would apply for promotions and I would get them. So I went from like an entry level counselor to a vocational counselor, and just kept going on and on. And when I finally graduated, I left that agency and I started working for those who know anything about Brooklyn, New York. I started working at Kings County Hospital. That's a infamous hospital in Brooklyn. And I worked in what those that are familiar, it's called the G Building. AKA what the G Building was, it was a psychiatric unit because it had a lot of property and buildings. And the A building was this, the H building was this, and that was the G Building. And I became intensive case manager. And in short, what that was, you conducted your field work. You conducted your field work. You went into the homes of individuals that were being treated for their diagnoses, and you would sit in the home with them for a certain amount to gear them into independent living with a substantial support network. Yeah. And, time went on, and I started dating and I got engaged and I got married, and I got married. And let me back up. As an intensive case manager in the state of New York, and you conducted your field work, you were liable to go anywhere. Wherever that consumer was, that's where you went. So I was in Rikers Island. I was in Bellevue Hospital. I was wherever I needed to be. In their home, I was at the grandparents' house. I was in the emergency units. So that took me a lot of places. You have any questions about that so far, Derek?
You said that the psychology is the study of the mind. So I'm curious to ask you, Miss Chariesse, is with all the different places you had to go with when you were in that part of the field, how did that intrigue you to understand these different personalities or these different mindsets where they were? Or how could you, doing your field work, I got to go to Rikers Island today. I might have to talk to somebody in another psychiatric unit. I might meet different people with different personalities with the same issues, but they see it differently. How can I address that, especially with the study of the mind, because every mind is different?
Well, when you're majoring in that type of a course, psychology, you are taught and you're educated on the different aspects. I took courses and helped me with my memory because that was a long time. We had different types of topics in psychology. It wouldn't go as deep as like forensic psychology. It would not go that deep, but certainly we could read up on it if we chose to.
Mm-hmm.
And we would find out the elementary portions of what that work entailed, assessments, um, reading the history, um, focusing on and investigating the genetics, the family generational line, what different diagnoses meant. Now, we did have to carry around with us like a Bible, the DSM. That's the
Mm-hmm.
acronym for the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, which would be the holy grail. That was the Bible for anyone that was in the field of behavioral and mental health. So that is something that we clung to. Why? That is what had all the different diagnoses in it with their definitions. And Derek, I'm sure you probably do know this, and if not, you probably known it, and it's to remind and educate those that are listening and watching. It evolves. More
Right.
and more diagnoses go in it every revision. So we would get the background work, but I'm going to be quite honest and frank.
Mm-hmm.
All that book reading we did in college, it's good to have under your belt, but your real work starts when you're in it.
Okay.
Your real work starts when you are in it. And I'm telling you, everything that I studied and read, I had it, but I had to act on a great deal of what I studied, but more my instinct, my surroundings, my feel, my vibe, my approach, my tone, right? My
Right.
stance, my stance, my safety. And that's just the truth.
You had to gain that experience and couple that with your book knowledge so
You
that
better
you
believe it.
could be the right fit for that person that was in front of you at that time. I appreciate
Absolutely.
that. I appreciate that. That's, to me, that's care. That is humanity, because in my for me in my journey, I haven't experienced. It took me a long time to find people that care, and I
That's
thank you for that, because you don't hear that. Like, I had to be aware not only of my book studies, I had to make sure that Chariesse had the right care, the right stance, the right intuition, the right awareness. I appreciate that. Thank you, because it's because I would come to you, I would trust you. I'm like, I'm going to Miss Chariesse, even though you might not be my case manager. I'm
yeah.
going to Miss Chariesse.
I heard that a lot. I mean, I heard that, I'm humbled and grateful, but I've heard that a lot and I still hear it today. I will say this, and I would like to hear your response or comment after I say it, Derek. You have to be cut from a certain carpet to work in that field. How how do you respond to that?
I agree. It
You do?
can't, it shouldn't be. I don't want to say can't, but it shouldn't be. Hmm. I'm going here because my wife works in the same field. She's a recreational therapist. And she tells me all the time that there's people that's counselors that go in there and they'll just hand people a sheet and there you go. Or they'll process and they'll talk for an hour and not have it interactive. And it's the ones that come in there that are a paycheck, or they're looking at the clock, or again, they having you hand you a sheet. Do you have any questions? No, educate me, because I don't know why. I have a little bit of surface area why I'm here, and sometimes that's court order, and sometimes it's not. So
That's right.
I agree. You have to. Like I said, there's three that stand out to me in my 15 years of dealing with mental health and substance use, because I'm dual diagnosed too, a co-recurring, as they
I
say.
did know
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 years of little over 2 years of sobriety. And then of
Uh-huh.
course I've dealt with my PTSD and my MDD through my ACEs, which is
Yeah.
adverse childhood experiences. And then
Oh,
I've dealt with my
oh,
military um
that's right.
trauma. Right. So it's three people that Miss Tanya, Stephen, and Miss Melissa, that I'll never forget them, because they're like you. They care. They care, they care, they care. And to the point where it's like, okay, as a client or a patient, you be like, you need to go home. We love you too. But go home. So,
So good.
but
Very
you're
good.
right. But you're right. You have to be cut from a different cloth, and you have to have that humanity. So,
Yeah. To even be able to sustain in that field.
mhm.
Because if you can't take, because you can have a daily planner or a weekly planner for what you're going to do when you arrive at the job all day. But in this field, anything
So
can interrupt.
how do you prepare? How do you prepare for, okay, so in did were you a so in through your entry level to your vocational to your intensive, how do you prepare for, did you have, because there was caseloads, right, of people that you got daily, or am I thinking of something different? Do y'all have caseloads? Were there caseloads or were there
No,
individual
you are
sessions?
exactly right.
Okay. How
You're
did you
exactly right.
How did you prepare
The
for
good
that?
news is,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and I like that. The good news is you were trained. Most every sector, every agency, um, you have to go through training. There are yearly trainings, there are recertification trainings, there are refresher trainings. So that's the good news. And though you may come with experience, and I can present to the Jackson agency, and when you read my resume, it says that I worked at the Fields agency. That's welcoming. However, you're now at the Jackson agency. So though you may have the experience with the Fields agency, we have to train you the Jackson way. And I
Mm.
welcome that because you take what you know, but you sit as an open-minded professional ready to learn on how to do it under the Jackson agency's policies, procedures, and guidelines. And yes, you will find many similarities, but there'll be a few differences. And I don't know if you've ever heard, but oftentimes you'll have new hirees that start and they'll say, well, when I lived over there in California, we ain't do it that way. And you know what everyone's thinking in their mind, right? Well, you ain't
Yeah.
in California.
Yeah. That's
And go ahead, you go. Because
no, no, that's just funny because that's something that my wife is dealing with right now is, and we sit down and we talk. I'm like, don't forget what you learned over here in Texas. It's different at this treatment facility. But don't forget what you learned there, but you gotta learn and be open to how they do things here and then mash it together. So
yeah,
that's funny that you mentioned that because that's what she's going through right now.
and to her or anyone else, my encouraging words on that would be, that's right, keep it. Just like you said, you keep it. But you just kind of stay in observant mode.
Mm.
And when it's time for you to roll your sleeves up, wow them. Wow them. Because I can almost guarantee they'll come back to you and say, well, how'd you do that? Well, how much? Okay, it worked. Well, that's good because you come with that experience and you come with tools that you know could be successful. Because here's the thing: names change, but the behaviors stay the same.
Mm.
The names may change, but those behaviors you'll be able to recognize them because the behaviors will stay the same. They're familiar behaviors. They're behaviors that you've worked with before. And even though everything won't be to the letter from your previous success, you'll find some identifying tools that you have in your toolbox and you can utilize them. As long as you're not stepping out of your um, policy of that agency or that sector, I would encourage it. And if you're not sure, I would make mention of it. And I would make mention of it in an optimistic way. Well, I know that, but if you why don't, have you ever thought about trying? Because I have tried that in my past and it worked. Is it okay if I try it? 9 times out of 10, you'll probably get a yes.
Mm.
You know. And speaking about the cases, I heard you mention the cases. We had case management training. Initial case management training as I was coming through the ranks, coming up in school, was at Hunter College in New York, very popular college. And that's where I got my case management my way. Yes, I had other types of trainings, but that was the meat, potatoes, and the foundation for me. Oftentimes, when I did relocate to these two states, which is um, I got married and moved to Delaware. Delaware is the second largest state, Rhode Island, and then it's Delaware. So Delaware had 3 state prisons. I worked in all 3 of them.
Wow.
And now, yeah, now currently residing in Eastern North Carolina. Um, all that I worked in and learned, I did bring it with me. Some things I had to throw out, and some things it complemented, what I was doing at the time and am currently doing. So yes, trainings are essential. depending on where you're going. It will be asked of you. Do I promote it? Absolutely, because things change all the time. Since I've been in the field, more rights for the consumer, I'll say that, has increased, has been recognized, has been brought to the forefront. Another principal identification that has been brought to the forefront: person centered individuals. It's not find a wheelchair. His name is no. There's Eddie over there. That's and Eddie, he happens to be an individual that uses a wheelchair, something like that. Person centered. We are people first, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not our illness. We're not our diagnosis. We're not our sickness. We're not our addiction. I'm Chariesse. Yeah.
Being able to see the person instead of the ailment or the disease or the condition. I think that's a great way to look at it, because then you can go in with a certain level of sympathy or empathy.
That's right.
And I feel like sometimes that gets lost, because they're so, oh, are you okay? Like, wait. I didn't need the awe just yet. I just need you to see me as a person first, and then we can get into the awe. Not saying I don't want it, but just see me as a person first. I agree with that, because sometimes it's hard, and a lot of professionals don't see the person; they just see one, the diagnosis, and then two, how can, and I'm not saying anything bad about medication.
Right.
Medication is a good tool to become stabilized, so that to get me back to my homeostasis, which means a baseline to get treatment. Now I can hear the treatment. Now I can hear the tools I need. I can get the spiritual principles. I can get scripture. I can get to a meeting. I can be comfortable to talk in a group setting or a one-on-one. So I'm not saying anything, but what I'm saying is that I just don't want to come into an office and it's medication first. Oh, let's raise it. I'm like, whoa, I just want to cry. Can I cry real quick?
Yeah.
So,
Mm.
so with everything that you've learned up to this point now, as a correctional behavioral program specialist too, what is that? Explain what that is and what you do in that role.
Okay. So here on the eastern side of North Carolina, we have 13 correctional facilities, because yes, I work with North Carolina state government and I'm in the adult correctional sector. Okay. We have 13 facilities, and a great deal of those facilities have correctional behavior specialists, one and twos, and they have different roles. Every prison has different roles for the behavioral specialists. However, what we all have in common is we all have the ability to have access to the individual's uh, assessment, their assessment history. Correctional officers don't have that. They don't have that benefit of reading their background. Reason? They are the custody safety portion of the facility, where we are the treatment part of the facility.
Okay.
So we come with the more caring, passionate help, help type of, where they're more of a preserve safety, right? A little bit more militant, which is a pro and a con. And that takes me into that crisis intervention, but I'm gonna get there in a minute.
Okay.
So, so the role of a behavior specialist, we have that. We can look into the history of an individual that comes across our case. All behavior specialists do not carry caseloads. Very few do. I happen to have worked in a facility where we carried a caseload. In addition to the facility that I worked in where we carried a caseload, you have to be certified as a developmental disability manager to carry, for the acronym's sake, a DD caseload. And what does that mean? That's an offender that's doing time, that's been convicted, who takes um, the um, the IQ test and scores 70. Who scores below 70 or 70 and below. So they are considered um, to have a challenge with their abilities,
So they
wherever
have
that may be.
so they have to qualify to get in to get a part of this program, or is this something that is offered in the correctional system automatically, or it has to be
It's a
a
part of
certain?
the thing.
Okay, okay,
When a person comes into when a person is convicted by the courts and they come into the prison, because that's another thing, Derek. People say jail and prison. People call jail prison when they mean prison, jail. Jail is different from prison.
yes, it is.
But oftentimes you'll hear the title five, and they'll say, well, my son is in jail. He ain't coming home for like 25 years. Then he's probably not in jail.
Yeah, he in
He's
prison.
probably in prison.
Mm-hmm.
And I even hear it on the television, with TV journalists and news journalists. No, prison and jail is two different things. So let's just make that clear. Um, when you enter our intake unit, and we have various intake units, and that's when certain things are conducted. You don't have a choice in the matter. And testing is one. Um, you know, um, Seeing what's in your system is two, through urinalysis test or blood test or however they can get it. It's usually urinalysis test, and just over taking a whole overview of your somatic, your body, because we have to check for tattoos, we got to check for this, we got to check for that, because as many of us may know, different tattoos mean different things.
Right.
So to keep up the continuity of safety, if this tattoo right here means cats and dogs, and this two tattoo right here means gorillas and lions, and we know that cats and dogs and gorilla and lions don't go together, we have to check you so we don't put you in the same unit, right? So all
Right.
these things are mandatory. Getting back to the behavioral IQ test, that's mandatory, because we have to keep and maintain and keep up the statistics on who's coming in, just as much as we keep up the statistics of what ethnicity of a person is coming in, just like we have to keep up the statistics of who's transgender and coming in. Somebody may say, well, why, Chariesse? Why? Well, oftentimes, because I work in adult male, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't work in the females correctional part, because we can get an individual that comes in that has already started hormone treatments. It's against the law for us to not continue that.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
So there's a whole nother direction we have to go in. Um, if their physical body parts are showing, we have to put them in a certain area. We have to give them a certain kind of treatment that stays within the laws of the state and the federal laws. Yeah, we have to make provisions. So what am I saying? I'm saying that the job of a behavior specialist comes with testing. We have different types of testing, not only one type. We do battery testing. There's different titles to the different types of testing that we do. Oftentimes, the titles of those testings come from the person who created it or founded it or invented it. And it's just your level of functioning type of testing,
Okay.
be it in matriculate, your fundamentals, how well are your motor skills, right? We check to see, because sometimes they may state, or we may have it noted from previous jail arrest, that they had traumatic brain injury, just different things. They have a sleeve length long full of DUIs. So we have to obtain as much information as possible for that um, offender, and that's where because a great deal of us, I'm just watching my time
Oh, you're fine.
because I'm
Hmm.
being obedient to you, and a great deal of us, a great deal of the correctional industry is um, servants in the population of individuals that are diagnosed with mental health diagnoses, substance abuse. And we have to acknowledge that so that we can govern ourselves accordingly
Hmm.
and continue to do our job, but treat them as the human that they are.
I know we got about 20 minutes, but and I want you to come back because in an hour, I tell my listeners and my viewers all the time, it's hard to get everything in an hour, but that's why I want my guests to come back because I, there's so much content here. And you got my brain just spinning as for a quick, like for this one. How happy are you seeing the correction facility go to that direction of correction? Because we've known for years that the correctional facility, the correctional system hasn't always been about correction. Now it's more towards, hmm, let's see what's causing this person to feel and act the way that they do mentally. There's something in there that's in the brain that's not really connected, or there's some type of trauma that has happened that we need that has made them act out this way. Because I know for me, in my addiction, it was a loop of just continuously, I'm depressed. Now I need to get used. I'm low because I don't have nothing else to use. Now I need to go steal. Now I need to um, um, get me something to eat. I need to go steal to get me something more to use. It was a continuous cycle. Now I'm mad that I stole. My soul is hurt. Now I gotta use to get me up. I'm trying to have sex. I need to use to feel good. I need to feel good. And now y'all are going to that direction of more correction. And I appreciate that. How do you feel about that going that way now?
One word, ecstatic.
Yeah. Good.
Awesome.
Good.
Long
Good.
time coming.
I know that's right, and I appreciate that. Real quick, let's talk about the CIT because I know you're heavily involved in that, and that goes that goes with the correctional part. Before you even get to jail or prison, you have to there's an officer there. There's someone that is called, and CIT is a new way, a new age of giving our first responders, well, our correction officers, a way of looking at substance use and mental health crisis differently than they did in the past. Could you elaborate on that real quick?
Yeah, I think I can do that in a New York minute. So, so CIT is the acronym for Crisis Intervention Team, and we train. It started with um, across America, and it just kept increasing and bringing more attention. We train first responders on how to approach an individual and to be able to recognize um, signs into knowing that something may just not be right, not necessarily the criminal act that they're being accused of or alleged to have done. And we're trained in that, and we're trained how to approach the various situations, and we use de-escalation often in a lot of these quote unquote crises. And because we teach it for those that are employed as correctional staff, instead of the just taking them down, cuffing them up, throwing them against the wall, and taking them to the what the street says the hole, we call it
Right.
you know, restrictive housing.
Hmm.
You know, we kind of recognize, and even if we're not sure, because we've had this crisis intervention training completed and under our belt, we are aware now to perhaps refer them to medical or mental health or someone else verbalizing this case might be a different kind of case.
I appreciate that, and I've sat Yeah, I've taken the training myself, and we've both have been the act outs and in the scenarios and stuff like that, which I love to be a part of. And I've spoken at these trainings, and I'm grateful that it's there because it gives people like myself, and I say myself because I've been on that side of having a mental health crisis or a substance use crisis where there weren't any that many options, but now there are. And then it wouldn't be the extra trauma of that force.
Right.
Um, Now there's that de-escalation, that approach, that talks to identify, like you said, something might not just be a little off other than that criminal aspect that they being alleged accused for if they did not do it. But also y'all had there's the integrative family services, there's mobile crisis that they call to have a certified or licensed therapist come out and give us more options than just putting us in the back of the car, putting us in the hole where we become even more traumatized and even more susceptible to shutting down. Um,
That's right.
so I really want to get to, man, there's so much, but I really want to get to you becoming a woman that came to faith. I really think that's important because I'm a man of faith myself. I believe in God. I believe in Christ Jesus. I believe in the Holy Spirit. I have to. People always ask me, um, how'd you get here? What did you hold on to? Like I had to hold on to Christ. It was God's grace that kept me and put me here. I mean, before I had to get to the CITs and the QPRs, which is question, persuade, refer, it's a gateway for suicide prevention. To before I got to NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness, before I got to all these places, NAAA, God had to keep me. So I want to know how you came to faith and how you came to believe and become a minister or ordained minister. Amen. Like, I think that's important to share as part of your story.
How much time I got?
You got 12 minutes.
I'm gonna do it in 10 or
Okay.
9. So evidently, and I currently host a show called Access Your Inner Wisdom, and we'll talk about that on the next show.
Yes.
So I I believe that we are born with these gifts, right? And when I gave you a little background of me, I spoke to you about how I was always listening to people and I always kept secrets. Those are tiny little tidbits of tools that ministers, counselors, right, and ordained individuals have. You have to be able to hold. So it was always there. I just didn't know what it was titled. And as I grew up, and my life wasn't always peaches and cream. I know you heard me say the two-parent household and middle class. Oh, but I forgot to tell you, I was the worst of all the children. Got to say that part. So it took me just being a rebellious preteen, teenager, and late teen, and probably discreetly uh, young adult. All the while, when I was in my early teens, because I was so disobedient and rebellious, my mom ultimatum. She said, "You need to go find you a church. Because if you don't go find a church, I don't know what I'm going to do with you." So at the time, I was living in Coney Island. Should be a little infamous name to people. And to get way across town, you had to take a bus and a train. So my mother told me to go find a church. Say where. So I jumped on the bus and the train and I go all the way to Brownsville, Brooklyn, New York. And that's where I found the church. But my grandmother lived over there, and I knew that I had a distant aunt that had children in this particular church. Lo and behold, I walk in the church, it's full of young people. I'm gravitated towards it. It's bumping, it's bouncing. I see the ushers, they look my age. I want to join. So I do see my aunt's sister, and she's like, "Hey, you made me store them." I said, "Yeah, you joined? Yeah. Can you call my mother and tell her I joined?" "Okay, baby, I will." So I go out to the payphone and I was like, "Ma, I did what you said. I joined the church." She was like, "Oh, which one you joined?" I said, "First Baptist," but there's a First Baptist in every neighborhood. So
Mm-hmm.
she thought it was First Baptist Church, Coney Island, but it was First Baptist Church of Brownsville. How did you get way across town? And nonetheless, you joined. It was from there that the leadership would say, "Hey, I see you should be the president. Oh, you should be the missionary. I see leadership in you." They saw stuff in me that I didn't see. And as I continued to um, get involved into church. In my Bible studies, I became very curious. That was my problem. I was curious in the street. That was a gift that God wanted me to channel into being curious
Mm-hmm.
about Him, His way, and His word. Time goes on. I'm into it, hands and feet. I'm in it, and I was told that I was going to become a missionary. I knew the work of a missionary. Go out and compel. We did it. We did it. We went to women domestic violence centers. We fed the homeless. Yada yada yada. Then, oh, you have the call of a preacher on you. Well, what is that? I need to really know what that is because I see what y'all do and I don't want to do that. No, you'll still be, you'll just be a servant to help,
Right.
to get your studies. And every state I went to, I used to sit in the background and they would say, "You come up." Gosh, and they would see that gift on me. So in 1994, I got my license in New York to become a minister. And I remember working hard towards it, consecrating, separating myself from things that would not uplift me spiritually. And we continued. I became an evangelist. I got my license. It went down to the courts. I could perform different things. And I still was questioning. I was like, do I have to be behind the pulpit? I mean, I know how to do it. Y'all taught me how to do it, but I want to go out there in the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's my thing. I can
Mm-hmm.
I can I can do it and I do it. But I want to go. So the work that I do, Derek, ministry is in it. It's
Yeah,
in
it
there.
is. Absolutely.
I don't walk around with the hat on, but what comes out of my mouth and the passion you see, it's in there.
But
And if
no, I do see it, and I think that it's not as prevalent as it should be in a treatment um, plan.
okay.
Um, uh, I believe that it's bipartisan. It's body and spirit. Like there are. I know for me, I can't fix one and not fix the other.
Mm,
Um,
hand in hand.
yeah, right, absolutely, hand in hand. And I'm still. I, my mother said the same thing, and I did not want to believe it until God was like, "Yeah, you gonna believe it, all right." And people ask me all the time, um, going through that addiction, that hell that you went through, what do you say about it? I say it was a blessing. They look at me funny when I say that, especially when I do HNIs, and that's hospitals and institution. For my listeners and viewers, that we will go speak and be and share our experience, strength, and hope. And people look at me funny, like you call it a blessing. I'm like, I have to. It was the only way that God had to sit me down and to make sure that 100% of my faith and me as this temple could serve and give glory to the Most High God, to my God. Yep. So yeah, I'm with you. I still struggle, and we tell people we're not perfect, and there's no such thing as perfection. But I'm always going to be in pursuit. So
The struggle is real.
always, always, always. And yeah, I see your passion. I see your passion.
Likewise.
I
Like
feel that. Thank you. I feel the presence of the Lord around you. Um, I'm just blessed today that you're here and you're giving this strength and this hope and this love to people and these resources. So before we wrap things up, uh, where can people, if they need to get a hold of Miss Chariesse and ask more questions, do their due diligence? They're dealing with their mental health. They're dealing with their family members that are in a correction facility, mental health. They know veterans or military personnel, service members or first responders, or they're a caregiver. How can they get in touch with Miss Chariesse, and Miss Chariesse can help them, guide them to where they need to be, if you're okay with that?
I am. Um, are you able to put it on the screen when I say it?
Not yet, but
Okay.
hopefully I'll be able to get there and I can put it in the transcripts. And so when I do my website, everything is going to be on my website.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Because I will echo it right now, but certainly you guys can get through to Derek and he will make sure that I get it. It's CB, like the first and second of my name, CB Jack, everything you see on the screen, CB Jack, the number 66 at gmail.com. So again, it's CB Jack 66. Those are the two numbers at gmail.com. Um, I also work with integrated family services that you mentioned. So that's that part-time private sector that you spoke about. So certainly I do promote the mobile crisis. The mobile crisis. That's 24 hours, 7 days a week on the
Mm-hmm.
street, on the corner, at Walmart, standing on your head, and we got you 24/7. And I sometimes carry that crisis phone as well.
Awesome. Um, Give me two things you're grateful for. I when I go speak, I always like to end it like that because I tell them, I share with them, for me it works for me, and I just want to see, just pass something on, my experience that works for me. If I'm ever in a crisis, or if I ever feel like I need to pick up or use, or if I ever feel depressed, I always be like, man, what are things that I'm grateful for to keep that joy from that joy to so that negative won't take over. So what are two things that you're grateful for?
I am definitely grateful to have a new leash on life because I am a recent kidney transplant recipient. I would be amiss not to mention that. So
Amen.
I'm grateful for God for the transplant.
Amen.
So those are two things. I'm grateful to God for the transplant. Is that okay?
Amen. Absolutely. That's more than okay. Amen to that. Me too. I'm grateful for God. I'm grateful for the grace, and the, I don't know how many chances he's given me, uh, to become a humble servant like yourself. And I'm okay with that. Took me a long time to be okay with that, but I'm okay with that because it brings me joy and it brings me peace to be able to help people like myself that feel like there's no hope out there. And there is. Like, you're looking at two miracles right now, people. Me and Chariesse. So So listen, I'm going to have you back because there's so much stuff that we didn't get a chance to talk about. I definitely want to get more into the childhood. I definitely want to get more into resources, more into, we just touched on the correctional facade, more into how you prepare for going into the correction when you're having a bad day, when Chariesse is going through stuff, and how you have to leave that at the door and go in and take care of these men and these women. So we got a whole lot of content to get into. And I would love for you to come back if you want to. I always tell my guests, my brothers and sisters, please come back, be a recurring guest, because that's what season 3 and season 4 is going to be. Is going to be recurring guests, because I have a lot of recurring guests that want to come back and continue what they couldn't get to in their initial interview. So, Miss Chariesse, I love you,
Love you
and
too.
thank you so much for doing this. And till next time, you take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Uh, yes, ladies and gentlemen, that's what we do here at Play the Tape. There are people out here that will jump in that pit with you because they know the way out. If no one has told you today they love you, I love you, we love you, and you know God loves you. With understanding comes peace, with peace comes love, and with love comes understanding. And with that comes faith. I know sometimes I say it out of order, and that's okay. I'm learning that I don't have to be perfect. But what I am learning is that I have to be present, and then I have to be in pursuit. And I'm always be in pursuit for experience, strength, and hope. I'm always be in pursuit of my recovery and my faith and my love in my journey. It's going to be fun. However you may be listening, however you may be watching, thank you. Until next time, peace.